joining me. As you can see, I'm getting my table ready for guests. And it just so happens that our story today starts with a meal. And I'm very, very excited to share it with you. I'm sure if I could actually talk to you and I said, what is so special about this week, you would know immediately what it was. You'd say, it's Easter, of course, duh. Okay, so our story starts with Jesus' disciples going, Jesus, you know, it's almost time for Passover. Where did you want us to have it this year? Now, Passover was a meal that all the Jews celebrated, and it was a very, very special time. A meal they did once a year. So Jesus said, well, you know, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go over to this place, and I want you to talk to this man, and I want you to tell him that the master would like to have the Passover meal with his disciples, his helpers. And so the disciples went, and it was exactly as Jesus had said. And they said, well, Jesus would like to have the Passover meal in your upstairs room. Could we get it ready? And he says, of course. And so the guys go upstairs and they get it ready, and they get a meal ready. And it was much different than the meals that we would have, but they knew exactly what they were doing, and they got the meal already. And it was getting late in the day, and Jesus and the other disciples joined them. So it was Jesus and his 12 disciples at this meal. And they're sitting around eating, and I'm sure there's a lot of men. They're probably just all joking and doing all this. And then Jesus said, I have something really serious I need to talk to you about. I'm sure things kind of got quiet, like, okay, what's going on? And Jesus said, one of you right here that's eating with me, who eats with me every day, is going to betray me to some very evil men. And the guys start looking around. They go, who, me? No, And then, you think it's you? And they were just going around the table. Who is it? And then Judas pops up, and Judas knew it was him. He had already been planning it. He said, oh, Jesus, it's not me, is it? And Jesus said, Judas, don't play games with me. And at that point, Judas got up and left. And Jesus had a very special time with the 11 that were left. They had a meal together, and then Jesus took bread, unleavened bread. It was like a flat bread, and he had the wine, and he served it to his disciples, and he said, this bread is going to represents my body, and I want you to pass it around, and I want all of you to eat it with me. And then this wine represents my blood that's going to be shed for you. This is all really, I'm sure a lot of it, the disciples really didn't understand at this point, but later they did understand. So as they finished up their meal, they sang a hymn, a song, and he said, let's go out to Mount Olives. So they got out to Mount Olives, and Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he said, guys, some really, really tough stuff is coming. It's going to be so hard. I just can't even describe it to you. It's going to be so hard that y'all are going to desert me. And they all look at Jesus. I mean, they have spent the last 3 years with Jesus, just with him constantly. And they said, oh, Jesus, we would never do that. Never. All of them said that. And Peter said, oh, Jesus, I would never do that. It doesn't matter. I could die, but I would not do that. And Jesus says, well, you know, the sad thing, Peter, is before the rooster crows, you're going to deny that you even know me. And he's going, not me, not me. But Jesus and his disciples went on to a place called the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, this was a beautiful garden. I had the privilege of going there a few years ago, and I just cannot tell you how special that was. but it was a place that Jesus and his disciples often went. And so they went to this Garden of Gethsemane, and he told his disciples, I need to pray. That wasn't unusual. Jesus did a lot of praying. And so he left the disciples, but he took Peter, James, and John with him, and they went a little further, and Jesus said, I need you to just pray. I need you to just be here with me. And he left them, and he went a little further into the garden, and he started praying to God. Jesus knew what was coming. He knew that he would suffer. Eventually, yes, he would even die. And it was so hard for him. And he's thinking, God, if there's any other way, could we do something else? But of course, not what I want, but what you want. We want what your will has got to be accomplished. Whatever you want. And he just prayed and he prayed. And he went back to his disciples. You know what they were doing? They were sleeping. And Jesus woke them up and he said, could you not wait with me for 1 hour? He said, you really, really, really need to be praying so that you don't enter into temptation. Things are going to happen and you really need God's strength. And so they stayed there, and Jesus went back and he prayed, and it was just a very, very hard time. He was just suffering because he knew what was coming, and he knew it was going to be awful. It was going to be painful. It was going to be worse than anything he could even imagine. And he came back to his disciples, and once again, they were sleeping. He let them sleep that time, and he went back and he prayed some more, and he said, Father, if there's any other way, but not what I want, but what you want. He went back to his disciples and he woke them up and he said, it's time to wake up. It's almost time for me to be betrayed, for them to come and arrest me. And I'm sure that the disciples were going, what's going on? You know, this is all, they did not know. And it just so happens that Judas, that one that had left the Passover, oh yeah, he had gone to see the religious leaders, and he had agreed with them that he would sell Jesus. He would not sell him, I guess, but he would give Jesus over to them if they would pay him some money. So they decided on 30 pieces of silver. Now, I don't have 30 real pieces of silver, but I got me some quarters out because I wanted you to see what 30 coins look like. And he told him, said, if you'll give me 30 silver coins, I will deliver him to you. So they had agreed on that. So back to the garden, Jesus is there with his other disciples, and he said, it's almost time. And about that time, here comes this crowd of soldiers, and oh my goodness, they have torches and swords, and I mean, you would think they were coming to get some kind of evil person, and they come up to Jesus, and Judas comes up, and he just, Rabbi, and he kisses Jesus. That was what he had told him, said, the one I kiss is Jesus. So he goes up and he kisses Jesus. And then the soldiers start coming in with their swords and everything, and one of Jesus' disciples, can you guess which one? Yeah, it would be Peter. He took his sword out and he went, whoo! He took off one of the ears of one of the soldiers. And you know what Jesus did? He picked up the ear and put it back on the soldier. Is that cool or what? Well, pretty cool. And Jesus said, put your sword away. Jesus knew this all had to happen. So all of these soldiers and these men, these rowdy men with all these torches and swords, grabbed Jesus and start roughing him up. And then they took him to the high priest, which was Caiaphas. And, okay, so they're trying to do away with Jesus. They didn't like Jesus. I don't know. Maybe they were jealous of him. All the people were listening to Jesus. They weren't listening to them. I'm not sure all the reasons. But they wanted to get rid of Jesus. So they brought in all these people and they said, we need you to tell tell us what this man has said, what lies he's told. So these people start telling all this stuff, and it wasn't true, and everybody knew it wasn't true. And finally, 2 men said, we've got it, we've got it. He said that he would destroy the temple, and in 3 days he would build it back up. And he said, Caiaphas said, did you really say that? Are you really, did you say those things? And Jesus didn't say anything. And then he said, I command you to tell me, are you the Son of God? And Jesus said, you said it, and you're going to even see that, and you're going to know before this is all over that I am the Son of God. And oh my goodness, Caiaphas said, oh, blasphemy, blasphemy. And he got raging mad. And if it was in a cartoon, he'd probably have steam coming out of his ears or something, you know. But he was so furious. He said, that's it. That's it. He's got to go. We're going to take him to Pilate, and we'll let Pilate deal with him. So while all this is going on, Peter. Let's go back to Peter. Most of the disciples had run away when they arrested Jesus, but Peter kind of followed behind, and he was kind of staying hidden so that nobody would see him. And he got to the courtyard, and he's watching. And one of the little girls there, he's trying to use the fire. It was kind of cold that night, and they were all gathered around a fire. And this little girl says, I know you. You were one of Jesus' followers. And Peter was afraid. He said, not me. Nope. And he stays around that fire a little longer. And after a while, somebody else says, I know you. You were with that Galilean. You were with Jesus. He goes, I was not. I don't even know the man. And then goes on a little longer. He's still trying to stay warm by the fire. He's trying to see what's going on in there. And somebody else says to him, you were with Jesus. You're one of them. He goes, I'm not. I don't know the man. I wish I'd just quit saying that. And guess what happened? The rooster crowed. And Peter was, oh no. He looks up, and Jesus looks at him. And it says that Peter just ran away. And he was so sorrowful. He was crying. Here he had promised Jesus he would never forsake him. And here the first thing happens, and he told somebody he didn't even know Jesus. Of course he knew Jesus. He loved Jesus. Jesus was his best friend. And he was so sorrowful. Well, it goes on, and they took Jesus then before Pilate. He was the governor. And Pilate sitting there, and he goes, okay, why'd you bring this man to me? And he said, are you really the king of the Jews? He said, if you say so. And about that time, all those men the religious leaders and all that mob, they started saying all this ugly stuff about Jesus. Now I have a question for you. When people start saying ugly things about you and they're not true, what do you want to do? I know what you want to do, because it's what I want to do. We want to defend ourselves. We want to say, that is not true. You need to not say that. But you know what? Jesus didn't say a word. He didn't say anything. And that really impressed Pilate. He thought, wow, that is really special that he could do that. Well, somewhere in there, his wife comes to him, and he says, don't have a thing to do with Jesus. I have had awful dreams tonight about this man, about Jesus, and things happening to him. Don't have anything to do with him. Don't you dare crucify, do whatever. You just don't have anything to do with him. And so then Pilate said, he asked Jesus again, he said, I'm sorry. as the accusations rained, they kept coming and coming. The people kept saying, "Oh, this man is awful. We got to do away with him and everything." Pilate thought, "Oh my goodness, we're about to have a mob. We've got to do something." So he said, "Okay, it is our custom that I would release one prisoner to you." And he thought that this is the way he would get Jesus away from them and everything would be good. He said, "I had this awful man over here, Barabbas, and he's been known to cause rioting. He's even killed people. He's a murderer. I could release him to you, or I can release Jesus, who I can't find anything wrong with." And they said they had already been told by all the religious leaders, "Tell him Barabbas, tell him Barabbas." And that's exactly what he said. "Who do you want me to release to you during this time of the year?" And they go, "Barabbas, Barabbas, release Barabbas." And he says, "Well, what do I do with Jesus?" And they said, "Put him on a cross, crucify him." And he's going, "I can't do that. I can't do that." And Pilate got a bowl of water and he washed his hands. He said, "I am washing my hands of this. Whatever happens, it's not my fault. I am not sentencing this man." But then he turned him over to the soldiers. And this is so crazy. The soldiers took Jesus and they stripped his clothes off, and he said he was a king of the Jews. So they decided they would make fun of him. And they made him a crown. Maybe a crown of thorns. Put it on his head. They put a robe on him. They got a stick. They beat him. And they whipped him, and they whipped him, and they beat him. And then as they put all this, they put a purple robe on him. Then they said, "Go ahead. Aren't you the king of the Jews? How are you doing now?" And they're just being so ugly to Jesus, and they spit on him, and they just said ugly things to him, and they beat him, and they beat him so, and they whipped him so that I've read that he hardly even resembled a man. It was just so awful. And then they took Jesus out to crucify him. And as they were taking him up, he had a cross he was taking, and then they found another man, a man named Simon, who carried the cross for Jesus. And they went up to a place called Skull Hill, or Golgotha. And there they laid out the cross, and they nailed Jesus to the cross. And then they put it in the ground. And there was a sign put above him that said, "Jesus, King of the Jews." But all those soldiers were still making fun of him. The religious leaders were making fun of him. As Jesus was suffering, it was just awful. As he was suffering and he was in so much pain, they were just making fun of him. It says the soldiers, they were deciding throwing dice or whatever, just to see who got his clothes. Can you imagine? And they were just being so cruel and so mean. And Jesus, he was up there, and it was about getting, I better move that hurts. It was getting to be about lunchtime, about 12, and suddenly darkness came on the whole earth. Got pitch black. You couldn't see anything. Black for 3 hours, until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was totally black. And Jesus said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He was in so much pain, but he knew he had to do that. The world needed a sinless sacrifice, somebody that had never done anything wrong. Jesus was the only one that could do that. That is the reason he had to die. And about 3 o'clock then, the temple, Jesus just, it says he died. He just said, he breathed his last breath and he just died. And the temple had a curtain in it, and the curtain was ripped from the top to the bottom. There was an earthquake, and it said there were even graves that were shaken, and believers in Jesus that were already died, and then the grave came back to life. All this stuff started happening. It was crazy. And some of the soldiers that had been around said, "This really was the Son of God." Well, as time went on, Jesus was, as it got later in the day and it was getting close to being the evening, a man named Joseph came and he asked Pilate if he could have Jesus' body. Now, he was Joseph of Arimathea was actually a secret believer. But they didn't bury people like we do now. It was like a cave, and it was very new. No bodies had been buried there or anything, and he asked for Jesus' body, and Pilate gave it to him. And he took Jesus' body, wrapped it in linen cloths, and he put it in the tomb, and there was a big stone they put over the front of it, and that was it, right? Jesus died. Well, the religious leaders got to thinking, oh, wait a minute. He said that he was going to come back to life in 3 days. So they went to Pilate. They said, Pilate, we're thinking that Jesus' disciples may come steal his body and say that he rose from the dead, but we know that can't possibly happen. So we need to put some soldiers out there by the tomb to make sure that nobody comes and steals his body. So that's what they did. They sealed the tomb. They put the soldiers there so nobody could come steal Jesus' body. Dun-dun, dun-dun. Now the exciting part happens. Sunday morning comes, and some of Jesus' followers, a couple of ladies, go there to the garden, and they're thinking, how are we going to get the tomb open? They brought some spices they were going to use for Jesus' body. They got there, and suddenly there was this glow. It was an angel. An angel came, and it just moved the stone back that was covering the tomb. And those soldiers were, they were just petrified. They didn't know what to do. They've never seen anything like this before. And he said, I know you're looking for Jesus, but he's not here. He has risen from the dead, just like he said he would. You've got to go tell his disciples. The ladies were so excited. They took off running. They ran, and they even met Jesus along the way. He appeared to them, and he said, go tell my disciples that I want to meet you in Galilee. I want all of us to meet together, and we will have a huge celebration, because Jesus died, but that wasn't it. He did not stay in the tomb. He rose from the grave. And that is why we celebrate Easter. And I thought, as I was planning the lesson, I thought, talk about a story of love. This is pure love. When Jesus came to earth, he knew what was going to happen. He knew. He lived for about 33 years, a sinless life, never did anything wrong. And then he was cruelly killed and mistreated. But he rose from the grave. And that's why we can have hope. Because our God, our Savior, is not still in a tomb dead. He is alive. He is a living Savior. And I was thinking about the verse in the Bible that is probably the most popular verse in the Bible. If I ask you to say one verse, this is what you would say probably. John 3:16. You can say it with me. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. That is so true. Our job is just to accept the gift that God gave us, the Son, the gift of his Son. And that is what, we celebrate we have a lot of fun at Easter doing different things. But I just wanted so much for you to know about the first Easter, the real reason that we celebrate. If you wouldn't mind terribly, I would like to sing a song with you, and it's just really easy. just kind of a fun little song, and it's just about Easter week. I might just stand up for this one, and it goes, Jesus, 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 Jesus. He died. He died. He died. He died. He died. He rose. He rose. He rose. He rose. He rose. Now he lives. He lives. He lives. He lives. He lives. Jesus. 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 Thank you so much for joining me today. I pray that you have a blessed Easter. Bye-bye.
For God to love the world that He gave His